California's pandemic-related eviction moratorium has expired, and renters across the state are now facing eviction. But in San Francisco, there's a new plan to help. Kelsi Thorud joining us now in the studio with these latest details. Hi, Kelsi.
Hey, Julia. So, this is a plan that was spearheaded by Supervisor Dean Preston. What it does is extend eviction protections for San Francisco renters another 60 days. Now, the supervisor says that time will help the city get out more rental assistance money to tenants so they can stay in their homes. But I spoke with one man who is facing eviction now, and he worries that the extension still won't be enough to help him stay in his home.
Ruben Salva has lived in this small one-room apartment in the theater district for over a decade.
I put my plate in here and my meal. I add the chocolate rice.
Ruben moved to the U.S. 15 years ago, looking for a higher-paying job so he could send money to his family back in Mexico.
This is my oldest son, which is this. This is my baby.
Ruben told me it's never been easy living in such a small space, but for years he made do, making enough money working at restaurants on the pier to pay his rent, send money home, and even buy a few things just for himself.
Yeah, this one is one of my favorites.
That's a good one.
Yeah, rap Z.
But then the pandemic hit, and Ruben's already difficult situation turned even harder.
And now actually I cannot even, I can't even afford this.
Ruben lost all of his jobs due to the pandemic, and after going through his savings, started to fall behind on rent. Ruben told me he was able to get rental assistance early on in the pandemic, but that only covered him for a few months. Now, 3 years later, he still hasn't been able to find a full-time job, and earlier this month came home to an eviction notice.
I didn't even know what is going to happen to me because I don't really like to become homeless because I never been homeless. I worked very hard all my life.
San Francisco Supervisor Dean Preston says Ruben is just one of many people facing eviction in the city.
We're at a very serious risk of an eviction cliff.
Supervisor Preston says once the city ends its COVID-related state of emergency, dozens of people will be kicked out of their homes if nothing changes. That's why the supervisor proposed a 60-day extension to the city's eviction protections.
So that folks can get ready and be in a position to resume those rent payments and avoid eviction.
Supervisor Preston says the city still has $24 million available for rent relief, but that money has been slow getting into the pockets of the tenants who need it. The supervisor says his extension will give the city enough time to get that money out to people. But Charlie Goss with the San Francisco Apartment Association told me he doesn't believe the supervisor's extension will do much to protect tenants.
With unemployment around 2.5%, COVID infection rates are very low right now, and everybody's back to work, we really don't think this legislation will protect very many residents.
Charlie says he's all for the supervisor's push to get out that $24 million in rent relief. He just doesn't believe the ordinance is needed to do that.
We really would urge them to accept applications again and roll out that rent relief funding. That's something we're very supportive of. We don't think this legislation is needed in order for the city to do that.
But while city officials and landlords go back and forth on what's best, tenants like Ruben say they're left waiting and wondering if the help will come in time. Ruben is fighting his eviction in court, but says more and more often he wonders if it's worth it.
Sometimes I thought or I'm thinking about to leave and let everything down.
But for now, Ruben isn't letting those thoughts get the best of him. When he feels down, he puts on some of his favorite music,
Paranoid, the best,
and pulls out his most cherished photos to remind him what he's doing all of this for.
Aw, yeah, he is. All right, so he's lived there for 10 years. I would imagine Ruben's story is like so many others. You gave us that snapshot into his living situation and that he's not alone, right?
Oh yeah, there are tons of people in the city that are going through pretty much the same thing that Ruben is. There's the Housing Rights Committee of San Francisco has been doing a lot to try and help these people.
Right.
They have a lot of tenants, even just in Ruben's building, who are being evicted and are fighting those evictions. But of course, they all worry that even with this extension, they won't have enough time to get enough money to stay in their home.